Welcome to the Chronic Pleasure Podcast. My name is Karen Laurie, and here we talk about all things pleasurable and some of the things that might get in the way of us having pleasure. So, someone was asking me about how do you handle abuse cycles? I'm assuming it's in a relationship. So, some abuse cycle. So, first of all, that doesn't happen to me anymore, but it used to happen to me. In my own experience, I couldn't get out of those abuse cycles, and it was really kind of treacherous. I didn't like it. And it would, in my case, it would cause me to get PTSD and to get not present at all because I was feeling that abuse. But one of the things I did that shifted that for me was I started to practice thinking of the things that I liked about the different people in my life. And I only focused on the things that I liked. And I still only focus on the things that I like. So I took someone who had been extremely abusive, yelling, a little physically violent, not listening if I said no about something and just going ahead and taking what that person wanted. So that was pretty abusive. Um, I switched it around, but I switched it within myself. And I had to get steady at switching it in myself before that person ever shifted. And in fact, anytime I looked to see if that person shifted, I was throwing myself off. So I practiced every single day for about 2 years, writing out what I loved about that person. And I just thought about the times in our experiences together where we'd had a lot of fun, where it'd been very romantic, where it'd been very sweet, very beautiful. And I wrote out how much I loved those experiences. I just wrote it to myself in my journal. I did not tell that person. All I did was write about it in my journal. But I wrote about it so consistently that every time I thought of this person, my heart swelled and I began to feel more and more love. And that love made me feel safe. Now, I'm not actually in a relationship, like a romantic relationship with that person. But what has happened is that person started telling me I was glowing. When we'd run into each other out in the world, he would say, you're a goddess. He has been great. If I had a question about something, he answers it usually pretty quickly. He did marry someone else, and that's wonderful. But for me, what's happened is I now feel so much love and appreciation for him. And all I want is for him to be happy. I don't know if he's still being abusive to anybody in his life now or not. But for me, it doesn't matter because I switched my thoughts until they were so steady, until all I could think of when I thought of that person was how kind he was, how loving he was, how helpful he is, how sweet he is. That's all I could think about. And that's who he became. So, writing out all the things you love about someone, and it sounds weird to say ignoring the things that you don't like, but you want to ignore them because whatever you put your attention on, you're creating. Whatever you put your attention on, you're bringing towards you. I remember before I understood this, I would focus on the way that person was being so abusive, and it would make me so afraid, and I would get more and more afraid. And it got to the point where when I heard the keys in the door, I was in uh, a danger, danger, Will Rogers feeling, really scared. And I just recognized once I'd gotten um, into a state of greater alignment, how I had basically created that person to be that negative way for me because of how I was feeling about him. I was afraid of him. I was um, I was looking at him as when is he going to blow up? But there's another aspect to this that's really important, and this is something that I've helped a lot of my clients with, which is that we often grow up with sort of people in our lives that might be a little abusive or that might be unkind or that might be unavailable or something like that. And we create thoughts that we never should have married. And we go to coffee with them and we marry them, and it's really dangerous about those people. So, for example, there was somebody in my life when I was younger who also was very he he was funny and he was often really great, but he was also kind of violent and would get really angry, get into a real rage. And he was somebody that was in my life enough that I could see this. So what did I do? This was something that I experienced very young. So what did I do is I started to see that behavior everywhere, and then I created it in every person until with that person, even though he's no longer alive, I started to practice seeing the best in him as well. And then what happened is I realized he was amazing. And yeah, he had those times when he was violent, but I had to switch it in myself. I had to heal that kind of trauma so that I wasn't attracting it. If you find that you're attracting trauma and you're not aware of how you're doing it, it's probably because you have an unconscious block or a subconscious block that is getting in the way. And a lot of times people have, you don't know you have them. That's what's so crazy because you can't, the only way to know you don't have any subconscious blocks is if you're 100% present and then only great things come to you. That's kind of where I live, but I know how to clear my own subconscious blocks and I know how to help other people clear their subconscious blocks. So part of the thing that can happen is that people can have these subconscious blocks and they don't see them. So for example, one of my friends was talking about how sometimes he'd be working and his wife would walk into the office where he was working because he worked at home, and she'd ask him a question and he'd get in a rage that he was being interrupted, and he'd yell at her, and she had the presence of mind of being so conscious that she could actually say, "Oh, what happened to my beautiful partner?" And he would realize that he had been operating on some old programming. So many of us operate on old programs. These programs are things that you can learn usually in the first 6 or 7 years of life, and they can create patterns in our present life that get in the way. So, another example, somebody actually said to another person, and I was listening to it. He was saying to, I was just in line and they were behind me and I could hear them. And he said, he was talking on the phone, how sick do I have to be for you to come see me? And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting way to get someone to come see you, one. But it's also an interesting way is that, oh, when I'm sick, people come to me. When I'm sick, people will take care of me. I don't want to get sick for people to come to me. I don't want to get sick for people to take care of me. I want to be healthy. And so people come to me. I want to be healthy. And so people are kind to me and do things that they want to do for me. But that's probably in that person a subconscious belief system that's getting in his way of getting the kind of relationship that he wants. So when you have those kind of belief systems, the thing to recognize is one, you might need somebody who can see it and help you release it. A lot of times people can see the belief systems, but they don't know how to release it. And that's what I did in therapy for 30 years. 30 years of going to therapy where they basically told me about these subconscious blocks, but they didn't remove them. It wasn't until I had a spiritual awakening that I realized how to remove them in myself and in others quickly. So I recognize that, if you have something going on where you keep attracting the same kind of person or the same kind of behavior, and it's a behavior that you don't want, either you have thoughts about that person that you've created and you're just cycling those thoughts over and over again and creating that experience over and over again, or you have some sort of subconscious block that you're not aware of and you're just creating this kind of negative experience for yourself. If that is happening, for sure, get my books, read them, do the practices in them, or reach out to me. I love helping people let go of those blocks because it's really fun, and then they get more freedom, and they get more fun, and they have better relationships, and better sex, and better money, and all sorts of good stuff. So it's a really wonderful thing to clear those ideas, those subconscious beliefs. So thank you so much for listening. That is how I would suggest to get rid of any abusive patterns. There's so much more to it, in terms of really checking, 'cause a lot of people have more than one subconscious belief, more than one thought that they married that they never should have gone to coffee with, that occludes them from seeing the goodness in the world and seeing the way that the world is working for them. So definitely do your best to, you can go to chronicpleasurebook.com, read the books, chronicpleasurebook.com, read the books, put the practices into practice. And if you need to, reach out to me. I love you already. And I would love to offer you a free consultation or something, a way to understand what you're going through, if I can help or not. All right. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. And hope to see you next time on the Chronic Pleasure Podcast.